This podcast is Entel enhanced. To see pictures, articles and links of what's being discussed, download the Entel app.
Hello, welcome to the Big Scuba Show.
So, hi, I'm Ross McLaren and I'm on the Big Scuba podcast with Gemma and Ian, and I'm very surprised to be asked, and I feel really privileged to be on it with you guys.
So here we are, once again.
Welcome back to the Big Scuba Podcast. We are your hosts, Gemma and Ian. Before we get cracking with today's episode, we just want to make sure you have hit that follow button or the subscribe button, depending on what platform you are listening on. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you enjoy what you're going to hear today, we would really appreciate it if you can leave a review and a 5-star rating. So now that's out of the way, we just want to say welcome and thank you for all tuning in, and now it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Big Scuba Podcast. My name's Ian, I'm one of the co-hosts.
And my name's Gemma and I'm the other one.
You're the other one, aren't you? And yes, we're back. We are in the Ford Mustang Mach-E, sitting in Lowestoft, right on the beach.
We are recording.
So while we're recording, you may hear other voices chirping in.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day, so there's plenty of people around, there's people in the water.
It's actually if you don't know the East Coast, this actually looks really nice here today, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice shallow beach just here.
Yeah, it's nice and blue out there. We are looking out across the sea. Next stop from us is probably Holland.
Holland, yeah.
But as we look out across the sea, we've got 1, 2, 3 ships and windmills and
Had jet skis go by.
Yeah, and we are literally about half a mile from the most easterly point in the UK.
Yeah, and
So,
about probably 8 miles from Great Yarmouth.
Yeah, so if you look on the map, you'll see roughly where we're sitting. Anyway, so that's kind of setting the scene for this episode, this podcast. We've got another guest for you. We have, on this week's episode, we've got Ross McLaren.
Yes, so he's from the west side of Scotland.
Great Scottish name.
He's got a great Scottish voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's just got into diving and photography, and very passionate.
Loves his photography, and he's a science teacher or chemistry teacher. So he likes blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
Oh no, they're not allowed to do that. Are they?
No, health and safety and all that.
Yes, health and safety at school. I was thinking back to my school days. But yeah, Bunsen burners and all that sort of stuff. And he likes getting in the water and having a dive, and especially doing some photography. And he's come on board to tell us today about all his diving.
Yes, and he's predominantly a cold water diver, isn't he?
Yeah, especially up in Scotland. So, and not our first Scottish guest. We've had previous guests. We had Elaine Whiteford.
Yes, yeah, it produces some good Scottish people.
Yeah, so, and we are off to the Farns in a few weeks. Not quite Scotland, but it's right virtually on the border. And it's lovely diving up there.
Yep, yeah, and I've just recently seen some Facebook posts of people diving in St Abs, and just amazing. Yeah, 8-metre viz.
Yeah, so we need to talk about the car. We need to talk about what we've been up to, and anything else really. Plus, any sort of news as well, don't we? Should we talk about the car?
Yeah, let's. Well, we're sitting in the Mach-E car. Aren't we?
We are. We wanted to try to see what it's going to be like diving and using one of these 100% electric cars, because cost of fuel's going up, cost of living's going up. Is it going to be any cheaper running about in one of these? Now, first signs and first experience, now living with this for the last couple of weeks, is good. It's a lovely car to drive. Yeah. I have to say.
Well, you had your first long drive in it, didn't you, to Stony?
Yeah, so I was on dive master duty for Crystal Sea Scuba up at Stony Cove for the weekend. Now, managed to get there, okay, but I couldn't get home all on one charge.
No.
Now, it's about 140 miles to Stony Cove from Bungay, and I had enough to run around, basically to get to Stony Cove, do the diving, and then get back to Lutterworth. It was about another 10 miles before I had to then charge up, which I did in the morning. Then went to
Back to Sunday.
Stony Cove, and then home. But again, I couldn't make home in one journey. I had to stop at Thetford, which is about 40 miles from home.
So it added
and get
time.
no charge. Well, in fact, what it ended up doing, because this is a great car, you know, it's lovely interior, goes like a train, you know, really quick, 0 to 60, 5 seconds, something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And it will take all your dive gear and more. However, the however has been so far is the charging network. You know, I don't have a rapid charger at home.
No, it's just been putting it into
It'll
normal.
take 2 days to charge. So commuting wise, you can't. In my view, I don't think you can have one of these cars unless you've got a rapid charger at home.
Yeah. You've got to think quite seriously about getting an electric vehicle.
You're just doing small journeys, then yeah, you probably could get away with it. But if you're doing, like, let's say round trip 50, 60 miles a day for commuting, you're probably going to struggle.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to get you through the whole week on one charge.
No. So, but people need to look into it. It's quite a big thing thinking
Yeah, I
about.
don't know why, but the government got rid of all the grants as well on these cars and on the charging, you know. So it was, you know, at a time when we need these things more, you know, especially for the environment and things, the government has got rid of the grants.
Yeah. But anyway,
But it's a really good, you know, I have to say it's been really good. It was to dive with, but it took all the dive gear and more.
Yeah.
So, well, so thank you to Ford for letting us use this. Cost-wise, first charge Stony at the services cost about £40. That took me from about 10 miles to 80%. So it was from about 15% to 80%. That cost me about £40. And then I had to put about another £25 in to charge me to then be able to get home, which then basically let me then go to CrossFit in the morning as well. That. So you could say it cost me about £65-70 in charge to get to Stony Cove and back.
If you'd taken your other vehicle, how much?
Well, I probably would have used near on a tank, I reckon, of fuel.
So 100 over £100.
Well, in today's money, yeah, potentially, yeah.
Yeah,
so it's definitely
a saving.
Yeah. So it's all good, and this car does get a lot of attention.
Just now.
And I think in red.
Yeah.
I've seen a blue one, I've seen a black one, but I think if you're looking around for Mustang Mach-E,
The red's very
the
deep
red
and
is
striking.
very eye-catching, and that does stop a lot of people to have a look.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that chap just walked by and he didn't know what it was, did
no,
he?
he didn't. No, he didn't. So it's really, really cool. These have been around about a couple of years. So go to Ford's website if you're interested in 100%. They've got other, they've got like hybrid cars and things like that.
Yeah.
But if you want to go the 400% mark for your diving, then have a look at the Mach-E.
Yeah, link will be in the show notes so you can
Other
have a quick.
brands are available.
They are, but have a look at the Ford.
Yeah. But and thanks to Ford. Okie dokie. Paddleboarding. We've been paddleboarding.
Yeah, they've got the McConk's paddleboard, the Explorer 11.4, so I've been out on that last weekend and this weekend.
Yeah, what do you think to it?
Love it.
Yeah?
Yep.
Looks a nice board as well.
Yeah, it's really, there's a really good pump that's come with it that was extra, so that's a triple pump. Takes about 7-8 minutes to pump up.
It's not like 3 cylinders, it works
3 ways, I think, and in and out. And
as you draw the handle up, it puts air in, and as you push the handle down, it also puts air in.
And then the resistance gets harder, so you knock it down to 2 and then knock it down to 1.
Yeah, which is pretty cool actually.
It is, yeah, and it makes it easier to pump up than what I've been used to before.
There's quite a few divers who like paddleboarding, so that's people might think, well, what are we talking about paddleboarding and diving? But there's quite a lot of divers who do enjoy paddleboarding.
Yeah, and it's involving those bits of water, the river, the lakes that we potentially do dive on, but we're on top of the water.
Yeah. Maybe if you are thinking about paddleboarding and you're a diver, perhaps let us know.
Yeah, and definitely check out McConks, because they've got a very informative website and they're very into their sustainability. And
we've just done a YouTube and put that out there, so give that a look.
Yeah,
That's
see how it looks in action.
Yeah, and it's snazzy. And when we go to the Farne Islands, I think we did last time, didn't we? Took our paddleboards.
Yeah,
we'll hopefully be doing the same again this time, all being well.
Yeah, have a little bumble out in the sea.
Yeah. There's quite a few people posting, I've seen, on Facebook and what have you. They're now getting into North Norfolk, around the diving.
Yes, yeah. So the season on the east coast or North Norfolk coast has begun.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, and it's all to do with visibility. That's the only reason that we don't dive it.
You've probably heard us mention before that our diving window on this coast is actually quite short. It's not, we don't get long because of the currents washed by our coastline quite rigorously.
Yeah, we're a very fine sand, so the visibility doesn't clear very quick.
And I can think of a few dives when I've done that Wayborn there, and you dive down and it's been clear, and within 5 minutes you just get hit by this wall of sand coming at you that's been washed up, and the viz is gone, and then a couple minutes later it's back again, it's passed through.
Yeah, but some of our fellow friendly divers have been out, and visibility looks great.
Seen some nice photos.
Full of fish, which is really, really good to see.
Yeah. If you're thinking about holidaying around here, a good group to look at is angling divers who are regularly posting. Or contact Crystal Sea Scuba or Scuba Libra in Norwich, and either of them two dive centres will put you in contact with people who regularly dive off our coast.
Yes, so there's plenty to do.
Do that. Bookstore. Should we talk about our bookstore? We've got a big scuba shop, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got a shop
on scuba Amazon bookstore.
Yeah, it's all on Amazon. So anybody we talk to and they've recommended books, or they've actually been involved in producing a book, then we've popped it in there.
To the bookstore, didn't we?
So we've spoken to a couple of authors. Will Appleyard, Wild and Temperate Seas, Confessions of a Dive Master, that was Chris from the Philippines. So it's been good.
Eloquence to Sardines.
Yes, another Bill Francois.
So give that a look if you are interested. And the one for the Wild and Temperate Seas, that's a good book to use as a tick list, isn't it?
Yes, we've managed to tick a couple off, haven't we?
We have, we need to do a few more there, like Swanage Pier. That's another one that's in there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's on the list for this year.
So that'd be good. And also we need to, we'll be bringing out a couple more T-shirts, and that'll be in our scuba shop when we do that.
Yes, yeah. So look out for the links are in the show notes, and you can have a look at the books and get yourself some summertime reading. And I see Greenfins, they've got some news as well, haven't they? They sent us a press bulletin, and they're now into Japan,
which is really cool.
Widened their reach, because they were more in Indonesia with all their Greenfins initiatives, but they've now reached Japan, which is really encouraging, because that's another big, it's an island, so it's obviously diving that happens around there, lots of wildlife, tourism.
That's be interesting to see how that all pans out.
So that's another bit of news.
Okay, so go to Greenfins or look up their social media if you want get more information in that. We are, I think we've got listeners in Japan, haven't we now? We're 116 countries on the last.
That was on the last look.
Last look, wasn't it? On our stats that we go out to. So, hello world.
So if you've got any friends around the world, recommend them.
It's a bit mad, really, when you think about it. We're just a couple of divers in Suffolk. rattling on about diving, and and that goes out to 116 countries.
Yeah, but
How crazy is that?
if we're entertaining someone, that's all that matters.
Well, it is. Yeah, that's how we look at it.
Yeah.
So,
But there are obviously our social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then the YouTube channel. So that's where you'll actually get to see us.
yeah, if you're not following us particularly on Instagram or YouTube, do give us a look. Perhaps you can, follow us or subscribe. It does help other people get, find us and help us spread the word. So
Share the love. Yeah.
share the love of diving. So that'd be good. And send us a message to say hello, you've just subscribed, or hello, I am now a follower of you on Instagram.
And if you've got any ideas for guests, we're always welcome any suggestions.
Yeah, if you're a diver, send us a message, let us know, and maybe we can get you on.
Yeah, if you listen back to previous episodes, we don't just talk to big divers, big names in the industry.
No.
We will talk to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a love for the water, then that's the time to tell us.
Yep,
Raise
absolutely.
your hand, say hello, and we'll introduce you to the class.
Yeah, no, we like hearing from everybody.
Right, let's get our guest on, shall we?
Yes, this is Mr. Ross McLaren, and he's going to talk about
Chemistry.
Yes, yeah, he talks a lot, doesn't he?
Right, let's do it.
Okay, this is Ross McLaren. Ross McLaren, welcome to the Big Scuba podcast. For our listeners, do you want to just introduce yourself and say who you are and why you're on the podcast?
Sure. So, as you say, thanks very much for having me. I'm Ross McLaren, and I guess I'm really here to talk about diving in Scotland. Try and raise awareness of what so many people just don't realise is beneath our waterlines. What I do always say to everybody, whenever I'm talking about diving, whenever I'm talking about my photography and stuff, I am absolutely not an expert, by the way. This is just me with a camera taking photos. I'm not an expert in diving. I'm not an expert in marine biology, the history, photography. I don't even really class myself as a photographer. I'm a guy with a camera that takes hundreds of photos in the hope that one of them is semi-decent, that I can maybe post on social media.
And hey, Ross, that's enough, because if you've got an interest in diving and you like taking some photos and sharing it with people, and it gets people into diving and think, let's give that a go, that's enough, isn't it? Really,
it starts so many conversations. I mean, the conversation started itself that I go scuba diving in Scotland is enough to get conversation.
Yeah.
Most people start with, seriously, are you crazy? That usually how it starts, and then when you can kind of show some photos and people start to go, is that really there? Is that really, is that Scotland? Is really?
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, it is. I think it's one of these things that if you don't see it, you just don't imagine. You just can't imagine that it's there. I mean, as I say, I'm definitely not an expert, and I'm really, really genuinely not.
So let's talk about you. So you're married. You're a chemistry teacher, are you?
Yes. Well, allegedly,
Cool.
I attempt to teach
I've
children.
got to ask, what's your favourite experiment?
We blow things up.
Anything that goes kaboom or smokes?
The screaming gummy bear, where you put a nice gummy bear into a bit of potassium chlorate, and you melt the potassium chlorate, and you put the gummy bear into it, and it gives a lovely, lovely reaction.
Awesome.
The gummy bear starts to scream and it starts to go on fire. It's great fun.
Do you still make the volcano? I don't know what it was.
It was magnesium, wasn't it?
Is that magnesium?
Well, magnesium we can burn magnesium, so it's more like, it's actually quite similar to what we use in flares and what we use in sparklers, the magnesium. The other one, I haven't done it for a long time. It's something like sodium carbonate, I think bicarbonate of soda and vinegar or something like that. I think it's been a long time since I've done the one with the volcano. But there's certainly a few experiments. The alkali metals in water is a favourite as well, where you get bits of metal in it, it catches fire, and the
Awesome.
Yeah,
And we can still do all that at school.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's just say yes, and we'll yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it's risk assessed and as long as you take precautions.
Of course.
Yeah. Wear the appropriate PPE and all
Yes,
that kind of stuff.
absolutely. Yes.
Fire extinguisher handy.
Yes, and turn the smoke alarm off.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm a chemistry teacher from the west coast of Scotland, and I'm married and recently just became a dad.
Oh wow!
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you very much. In Boxing Day of all times,
Oh, wow.
tiny tiny baby Hannah decided to make an appearance a wee bit early. So she arrived in Boxing Day. So yeah, chemistry teacher, West Coast of Scotland, married, dad, and part-time scuba diver, basically, and get out as much as I can, as much as often, which is slightly less at the moment, as opposed to being a family of 3. But we're really determined not to let it stop us doing stuff. One of the big things for me was when I told people we were pregnant and we were having a baby, everyone used to say, all right, when are you selling your kit? Oh, well, that's the diving finished.
Yeah.
It was funny, people always laugh about it and stuff, and they're trying to be funny, but it gets a bit grating, it gets a bit wearing after a while, and you start to get really quite frustrated with it. So we've kind of made it our mission. So Rachel, my wife, she also dived, but not quite as into it as I am.
Yeah.
We kind of made it our mission that it's not going to hold us back, and we're going to take Hannah to the dive sites with us, and we've got a wee camper van that we got before the first lockdown, and we're going to take that with us, and we're just going to have family days out. So
Yeah, that's fab. Yeah,
that's the plans for the summer. And yeah, so I've been diving for 6 years.
What made you get into diving then?
So diving itself's always been something that I really wanted to do. Don't really know why, but there's something about the water that I always thought I really, really fancy this. So when I was younger, I did a few try dives, like when I was like 12 and 13. My dad, so it was just myself. I'm only a child, so we were away on holiday in places, and we would do it in the pool. And eventually, I convinced my mum and dad to let me go in the open water for a try dive, which I went with nobody else. My dad didn't want to go, my mum didn't want to go, so they dropped me off at this random dive centre, and they took us out to this bay. And nowadays people probably would never let them do it, but mum and dad were like, yeah, sure, okay. Say that again.
How old would you have been?
I think I was about 13 at the time, 13 or 14. I don't think I was as old. It must have been 13.
Yeah.
They did eventually come in. The dive centre took us out to the wee place, and we did the wee swimming stuff like that. And mum and dad did walk along to meet us there and stuff. But it's always been there. And it wasn't, funnily enough, it wasn't until 6 years ago that I actually eventually got round to getting certified. And the idea, funnily enough, was never to really dive in the UK. UK diving was kind of something that I fell into by accident. I've got family in Australia, and they had offered us to go for the summer, and we thought, well, that sounds great, and obviously go to Australia, want to go and dive the Great Barrier Reef. And what we had thought was, right, well, we'll get certified in Scotland before we go, so we don't have to spend like a week or whatever it is, a few days learning to dive.
We'll
get our certification in Scotland. We'll do a few dives before we go out to Australia, and then we'll do most of our diving abroad, on holidays and stuff like that. Which I think really did eventually become the best thing that we did. Sadly, the trip to Australia never went ahead. Things, life got in the way and bits and pieces happened and stuff. We absolutely loved it, and I really, really took to it. So we just started diving. We joined a club, so we did Paddy first, which was great. We joined a local club in Kilmarnock, which is a wee bit away from our town, a wee few towns over from us. Yeah. And it's been the best thing. Honestly, everyone, I know there's the whole kind of which agency is the best, and who did you go do you do club diving? Do you do and do what I always say to folk, do what's right for you. But joining the club was the best thing that we did. It's been so good. It opened so many avenues. We've met friends. I mean, I think you talk to loads of people in diving, and they always talk about meeting friends, like that become friends for life, and we genuinely have through the club and through diving. It's been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I kind of accidentally fell into British diving, if I'm being honest, and Scottish diving. It was more always kind of aimed at the kind of the warmer water diving. And ironically, the only warm water diving, we've only ever been in 2 holidays abroad, and it was both to Mallorca twice, and that's the only warm water diving we've actually ever done. We've never managed to go anywhere else exotic, if you like.
Yeah, so you're a real cold water diver then.
Yes, I suppose we'll dive anytime, or I say I'll dive anytime as well. I always remember people joining the club and saying, "Oh, so what's your kind of diving season?" And the other guys in the club are great. They're like, "What's a dive season?" Like, do you dive during the winter? And I'm like, why would you know it? So yeah, we've kind of turned into this person that will just dive in any weather. I've seen myself kind of smashing some of the ice in the sea lochs, obviously not too thick, but just you can hear the ice cracking under under your feet as you go in and stuff like that. It's not anything crazy. It's a tiny little layer, but I've seen myself doing that. And usually we go out for a dive between Christmas and New Year and stuff. It has, as I say, I've kind of fallen into this UK diving, Scottish diving by accident, but it's probably been one of the best things I've done, aside from getting married and stuff like that, but and having a baby and stuff, it's one of the best things I think I've done. And
you're so enthusiastic. It's great. Yeah,
I love talking about diving, and it's one of these things that I get so kind of passionate about. And so sorry if I keep talking, just stop me. And
there's a podcast, so it's fine.
The button at any point, honestly.
Yeah. So your initial experiences of diving in Scotland, were you a bit apprehensive, or did you just like throw yourself in? And
I'm one of these folk that just kind of throw myself in, and as long as it's nothing to do with heights, anything to do with heights I refuse to do, but anything else I just kind of throw myself into it and see what happens. Rachel, my wife, she was a bit more nervous. She took a wee bit longer to get certified, and she needed a couple of extra sessions and stuff like that. Whereas I would like, right, come on, let's go. Let's get it done. And yeah, that's cool. We'll do that. There was a couple of things that you struggled with, the kind of usual stuff like math skills and stuff at the very start. And my open water weekend was, well, I think it was wetter on the surface than it was under the actual itself. It was just, we were in the Friday night beforehand and we were looking at the weather forecast, and you could just see these clouds going right over Loch Long. We were just looking at it thinking, oh my God, what are we doing?
So what level have you got to?
So I did Paddy, open water and advanced.
Yeah.
And then we swapped over to ScotSAC, which is the Scottish equivalent of BZAC.
Yeah.
Right.
And that takes me, I'm now up to Master Diver, which is 40 metres.
Okay.
And I'll be totally honest with you, the only reason that I did that was quite simply to go to Scapa Flow. Kind of courses and stuff like that. I've done all the ones that I kind of have to do. The guys in the club for ages have been kind of saying to me, oh, come on, do instructor. We need some more instructors. And I'm like, no, I really don't want to, There's a selfish side of it. I'll be honest, there is a selfish side. I always kind of say to them, look, I teach Monday to Friday. Diving is my kind of escape. Yeah. I like to go diving at the weekend and take my camera and just look at the fish and look at the life. And
that's fair enough.
That's, and it is really, there is it is totally selfish side of it. And eventually I will, I know I could do it if I wanted to, I put my mind to it, I could. It would take me a wee while to get it all, but at the moment I'm kind of focusing just on enjoying it,
but that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's really what's right for, that's what people ask, should I do this and should I do that? And I don't know why they ask me, because I've got no expertise really. But
if your heart's not in it,
exactly.
It will come through in your teaching. I'm pretty sure of that.
Exactly. I mean, I'm dead passionate about it, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the diving itself, I like to focus on my photography, and I like to focus on taking hundreds and hundreds of photos,
Yeah.
So you started, obviously, your underwater journey. So where did picking up a camera, why did that start?
I think it was because, in all honesty, my family, my parents were like, what are you doing? Why are you going diving in Loch Long and Loch Fyne? What is there to actually see? And I was like, right, okay, I'm going to go and get a really cheap GoPro and I'm going to show you what there is to see. So I started off with, I think it was the GoPro 1, and it was like no screen on it or anything. There was no screen on it. It was quite literally point at the subject and literally hope for the best. So I started off with the GoPro and I was trying to show people, this is what's here, look at what's here. And like my work colleagues and stuff are like, gonna stop posting photos of the same crab. Stop posting photos of crabs. I go into work on a Monday morning and I'm like, can you just stop?
Here's a crab. Here's another crab.
Yeah, look, there's a starfish and there's a crab. And the problem was the photos were terrible at the start. They really, really were. So I kind of progressed on to a slightly better GoPro. What you'll find is I am very much the magpie of diving. If it's new,
okay.
If it's new, I want it. I always, the phrase "all the gear and no idea," I always say this to everyone. That was written about me. I have got, if it's shiny and it's new, I want it. Do I need it? No, but I want it. Rachel hates it. She
Well, I
absolutely
think most of us
hates it.
divers are like that, though. If there's new bit of kit coming out, we're like, oh, that looks
Ooh,
nice.
That looks really good. I really want
Yeah.
that. And so I always, so I moved up to the GoPro Hero 7 and I started doing some videos and photos, and that was great. And then I was never really into Instagram and stuff like that. I was really just Facebook. And then we started Instagram and I started looking at other underwater photographers and I thought, wow, these guys' photos are incredible. I mean, then you were looking at my photos and going, they didn't take those photos on a GoPro. So I thought, right, okay, then you enter the rabbit hole that is underwater photography, and where do you go? I mean, there are so many different cameras and different bodies and different housings and different lights, and you think, oh man, no.
So what
And
have you moved on
expensive.
to now?
Yeah.
What's your
So-
mainstay for photography?
So I recently changed to the Olympus EPL9, which is like a step above the TG-6 and the compact cameras like the Sony RX100s and the Canon G9s and the Canon G7s, but it's a step below the bigger DSLRs like the Sony A7s and the Nikon DSLRs and the Canon DSLRs. So it's a mirrorless somewhere in between.
That's a mirrorless.
Really
is it?
expensive. Yeah, it is a mirrorless. It's a micro four thirds. So I think all Olympus cameras are micro four thirds. So the main ones for Olympus is like the EM1, which is their kind of big, that's their flagship model, which I think is now the OM1. They've got the EM5, they've got the EM10, and then you've got the pen cameras,
Right.
which kind of they're more marketed as like kind of vlogging cameras for like Instagram users.
Yeah.
But I found I was looking to upgrade from my Canon. So the Canon G9X is a fantastic camera. It's a great wee camera. And there are so many people that are doing amazing photography with it. I don't know if you guys have come across Georgie Bull and James Lynett, right?
No,
You need
no.
to check these two guys out. So Georgie Bull is down south. She's phenomenal. Her photos are taken in the Canon G9. They are amazing. And James Lynett is up here. He's up in Scotland. He does fluorescent photography. Honestly, his work is incredible. He uses blue lights to get the phosphorescence as opposed to just the normal shots. He uses the G7, the Canon G7. But being me wanted something new, but it was like, champagne taste on like,
You didn't
but
like did you try anything like the Sony RX100 or anything like
so the Canon G9 and the Sony RX100, the kind of G9 and the G7s and the Canon are kind of on par with the Sony.
Yeah.
Kind of on par. So I wanted to go somewhere into the kind of interchangeable lenses. I wanted to go into the DSLR, but I couldn't really afford it, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah,
I also didn't
lot of
want
money.
the big bulky size as well. I was quite happy with the compact size. So this Olympus, the EPL9, kind of ticked all the boxes. It had the kind of DSLR features, it had the interchangeable lenses, but the housing in the camera itself was about the same size as my Canon. So I did a lot of research, and eventually I thought, I'm going to bite the bullet here and I'm going to just give this a go. So I've moved over to that with it's called an AOI housing. It's I think the guys at AOI actually make the fantasy housing that usually go along with the G9s, the G9, the Canons and stuff like that. So I spent a while looking that up, and I've kind of moved across to that, and I love it. It's really, really good. I think the Olympus is a very, very underrated camera system overall. It's because of the sensor size. Everyone wants full frame sensors and APS-C sensors and stuff. You can go into all these details, but the micro four thirds, a lot of people kind of look down on a little bit. But I actually ended up changing all my camera. So I do a little bit of kind of land photography. Again, not a photographer, it's just literally a nice big camera. I got a big camera, it takes big pictures. So I actually ended up getting rid of all my Canon stuff and just moving across to the Olympus. So I've now got my big Olympus kind of, if you like, DSLR camera and my wee Olympus underwater camera as well. I get right into the photography. I kind of sometimes talk about it and it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but honestly I really, really genuinely don't know.
Such
But
a
you've
good
got the
thing,
passion, haven't you?
Yeah, I love talking about them. I mean, I'll talk about cameras and I'll talk about photography for ages.
And how many divers are there out there who don't go in with a camera?
There are so Yeah, I
You know,
mean,
there's not
I
many.
I think that, anything, whatever you're comfortable with. This is, people ask, what should I go with and what should I use and stuff like that. The guys in the club say, go with whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
If it's a GoPro, take a GoPro. The guys in the club send me photos. I kind of do the kind of social media stuff, just like the Facebook page for our club page. And for a long time, it was only my photos that were getting posted, and I had to eventually say to the guys, "Look, why is nobody sending me photos?" And the answer was, "Oh, well, yours are better." And it's like, it's not about whose is better. It's about just shows what there is.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, if you enjoy using your GoPro, great. If you want to move on to a bigger camera, great. But it's just such a fun thing to do. I think as well, when you start photography, it makes you appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, and I think you can be quite nervous about having another something to think about when you're diving. Exactly my thing.
And that's the thing you got to be thinking about is how much more you add into your diving. And that was a big thing for you, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I was worried about, where do you put it on your BCD, and am I going to be able to get at it? And so we've started with the TG-6 and Olympus, and I can't believe how easy it is to use under the water in the housing. It is just amazing.
It is. And one of my friends the other, in fact, he was a wee while ago, and he was asking the same thing, what do I go with? And I said, well, I've used the Canon, and I know a lot of people use the Olympus. Just have a wee shot, go and find somebody that's got one and ask them to have a wee shot of it. As you say, you kind of add to your kit all the time, and you do get a bit nervous, because that's the same as me. I still don't want to take a big DSLR camera because I'm comfortable. I put mine, if you like, I've got 2 straps that come off my shoulder, shoulder D-rings, and I know that I can clip one of them on and it will hold it. And I know that if I really have to, I can drop that camera and it's not too big and bulky, that I can still do everything else that I want to. Whereas in my head, I know that if I have a big DSLR, that comes with a big housing, all the lights, and like 3 or 4 lights that a lot of these guys go in with, I know my limits, and I think, no, maybe that's just a bit much for me. I think you get yourself comfortable. That was a couple of people have said quite early on, "Oh, I want to take a camera underwater with me," and these are kind of folk that are just starting diving. And you say, look, enjoy the diving first. Photography will come. Absolutely. Start with a GoPro, start with a wee cheap knockoff. There's nothing wrong with that, and then build yourself up.
That's
because
great advice.
As you were saying there as well, Gemma, you were saying, it's using it underwater too, and it's getting used to not even just holding it, but the buttons that are involved with it as well. I mean, I'm probably, in terms of photography, I'm quite not unorthodox, but I don't conform to what is the right way of doing it. So with still photography, a lot of people say you've got to be on manual settings. You've got to be fixing your shutter priority, your aperture, your ISO. See, for the first 2 or 3 years, I had it in auto. I mean, literally, I had it in auto, and I pressed the button and I hope for the best. Honestly, and the other one is, with still photography, everyone says you should be using strobes. Or not everyone, but it's kind of the thought is that for still photography, you should be using strobes like you would be using a flash, as opposed to video lights. And again, I don't want to be faffing about with strobes and fixing the power of the strobe.
And it's all money.
It's more money. So I just bought 2 relatively expensive video lights, and I turned them on. And again, people go, well, shouldn't you be using strobes? And I'm like, well, it works for me. Having the camera in auto and putting my video lights on worked for me. I mean, the photos that I get, I've been relatively happy with. I mean, they've been shared various different places, that they've been kind of published in various different places, and they weren't, I didn't mess about with settings underwater. It was lights were turned on, the camera was pointed at whatever it was. And
same for us. We don't really get into the whole settings and stuff.
No, automatic.
At some stage probably will, but at the minute it's just getting used to the camera.
That's exactly the same as me. So what I eventually did last summer was I thought, I've spent so much money. I sat down and counted up how much money I'd spent.
Yeah, scary.
Yes. Rachel wasn't anywhere near me at the time, so I did this in a locked room, and I thought to myself, do you know what? I've spent a lot of money on this photography stuff, and not just underwater, but for out and about, hill walking and stuff. maybe I should do something actually for me, for my skills. So it's taken me years, but I went to a night class for 6 months at the local college, and I just did an introductory to photography class.
Wow.
And it was brilliant. It taught me how to, it was studio shooting. It was outdoor shooting. It wasn't underwater photography.
No.
But I could take what I learned there.
Yes.
Over the kind of 6 months, what I would do is I would go, right, okay. So I've learned about shutter speed this week. So what I'll do is I'll turn it on to shutter priority underwater. So then I could mess about with how fast or slow the shutter speed was and let the camera do the rest of it.
Yeah.
And gradually I would build it up to now shoot in manual, but that's only because I've gradually built up to it.
It's knowledge, isn't it? And it is another skill level, photography. If you want to learn.
It's art, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
If you're serious about it, and do you know something? Some of my favourite images are still the ones that I took on auto. That's what I say to you. I've got, in fact, one of the images that everyone keeps bringing up is I've got one that's actually, it's a screen grab off a GoPro, and it's a fireworks and enemy that looks like a face. I've obviously brought the GoPro across.
Yeah.
And I've obviously just caught it at that right moment. I didn't even know I'd done it at the time, and when I got home, I was flicking through and went, oh my God, that looks amazing. I've got a photo of a cuttlefish, my only ever photo I've ever managed to see of my only ever cuttlefish, my bobtail squid. And it was on auto, and I still love it, and I still go back to it, and I still edit it now and again, tweak things as I learn a little bit more about editing photos. I go, right, okay, well, that was taken ages ago, and I've posted it a couple of times, but maybe now I've learned this wee trick, maybe I'll change this. And it's all about learning, and it's doing
and having a go.
Make what you're comfortable with. There is no pressure. People will always tell you, listen to people's opinions and listen to people's advice, but I always say to folk, listen, remember, it's up to you. You do what's comfortable for you.
So
the TG-6 is a great camera to be starting with, and I say starting with, it's not even starting with, to be using just in general. It's such a cracking wee camera.
They are, absolutely, really, really good. So, tell us a little bit about where you're diving. You're based up the northwest of Scotland, and you've already mentioned a couple of the lochs. Are they freshwater? Are they salt?
They're sea
lochs. Sorry, what they like to dive. We've never dived lochs.
No, not
pretty
yet.
sure many of our listeners have probably not dived at any of the lochs.
Well, what I would say straight away is, if you ever get the opportunity, come up and see it. It is, I think we become very numb. Do you know that way, where you're used to something, you go, oh, this is a bit rubbish, I've seen this before. But see, if you've never experienced them, they are great. So we are just, so they're all sea lochs, which means they open out into the Clyde.
Yeah.
And we're just past Loch Lomond. So come out of Glasgow, you're about 35-40 minutes from Glasgow. So you're quite to the central belt. Generally, the ones that I tend to dive mainly is Loch Long and Loch Fyne. So the best way to describe that is they're the two lochs to the west of, Loch Lomond. And both lochs are fantastic. They've got an array of dive sites on them. So Loch Long is probably one of the most dived lochs in Scotland, if not the most. And if you ever do a course, if you ever do your open water in Scotland, chances are it'll be Loch Long or Loch Fyne that you do it.
Yeah.
So main kind of dive sites in Loch Long is one called A-Frames or Finnart, which is an old oil terminal. I say an old one, there is actually still an oil terminal there, but it's an old pier that was blown up. And so you can still see like the A-frames from where the pier was and stuff like that. And it's such a fantastic dive site. I mean, you've got so much life. You've got the frames to go around. Okay, it's popular, and if you go on a Saturday, the kind of standing joke in Scotland is it's busier than Sauchiehall Street on a Saturday.
Oh, really?
It's a famous street in Glasgow that's really, really busy.
So are they shore dives?
So the sea lochs are shore dives.
Yeah.
Wow.
You've got a few up the top of the loch, up towards a place called Arica, which actually has three really popular hill walks called the Cobbler, Ben Eve and Ben the Rain, and they actually look directly over these couple of dive sites up the top. And honestly, again, you're talking, they're shore dives, relatively easy entry and exits. Mostly kind of rocky reefs. So you've got your usual. You've got your usual crabs and starfish and things like that, but very often you get things like conger eels. Well, there's one dive site's called Conger Alley, so you can imagine where it gets its name from. You're getting lobster, loads of nice big lobster, and you're also getting, now and again, there's a resident octopus, which is nice. I mean, it's not overly common up here in Scotland. Certainly not in the lochs that we dive all the time, but there's a resident octopus that kind of hangs about at one of the dive sites. So if you're really lucky, you'll catch him. Unfortunately for me, I was very lucky and caught him. I just might have forgot to take my camera that day.
No.
Turned up to the dive site and I had I built up the camera at home and just lifted the camera, the house and the lights into the car, and I just put it in the car, and I got there and I thought, all right, I better just quickly double check that I've got a new memory card in it, and I opened up the housing at the dive site. The camera wasn't there, so I was very got in the water. I phoned my wife and she went, yeah, your camera's sitting here. And I phoned Rachel and she's like, yeah, it's sitting in the kitchen table here. And I'm like, yeah, take it you don't fancy, driving up with it. And she's like, I'm not driving an hour and a half to give you your camera. No.
Yeah.
So, that was the day that the octopus was really out and showing off his stuff.
Always away.
Always. There's Loch Fyne as well, which is just slightly more west to Loch Long. By the way, the drive to these places is incredible. So the drive outside of Loch Lomond is just brilliant, and then you drive kind of through the hills a little bit to get.
Yeah, I bet it must be amazing.
Honestly, this is what I mean as well. When we get kind of numb to what you're used to, we're so spoiled. I think at times that we become just like kind of. What's the word I'm looking for? Blasé about it. Maybe not blasé is the right word.
Well, it's just natural for you. It's your landscape, isn't it? So.
But again, a couple of cracking dive sites in Loch Fyne. You've got wall dives, you've got all shore dives again. So you've got these kind of nature ones, all kind of life-based. But on top of that, we've also got the Clyde, and the Clyde is phenomenal.
Really?
So the Clyde has got over 250 wrecks in it. And there is some phenomenal diving in the Clyde. There isn't many boat charters, funnily enough, and easily the best one, and the one that we always go out with, is a guy called Jason Coles at Rexpeditions. And I don't know if you've ever come across him, but I would certainly suggest looking Rexpeditions up and maybe even getting him on to talk about the Clyde diving.
So depth-wise, where
So this is where there becomes a wee bit of an issue with the Rex and the Clyde. A lot of them are a little bit deeper, so you're kind of talking around the 25 plus meters. Here there is a few at 20 odd meters, but you're kind of talking about 25-30 meters for the majority. I mean, there's the couple of wrecks in the Clyde. You're talking like the Acker, the Dredger, the Wallachia, and there's another one that's just totally left me there. These are the main wrecks in the Clyde, and they are phenomenal. I mean, the Acker is a cracking wreck. And then there's Loch Striven, which as well we go with Jason. So Loch Striven is slightly further west again, and this is my favourite. It's where they did the testing for the bouncing bombs. Well, sorry, not the actual bouncing bombs, but what they call the high balls.
Right.
So the bouncing bombs for the dam busters.
Yeah.
Well, Barnes Wallace actually designed another bomb called the high ball, which was designed to sink the Tirpitz. It was the German battleship in the Norwegian fjords.
Yeah.
And what they actually did during the Second World War was they took a French battleship up Loch Striven, and they moored her in the middle of Loch Striven, and then they got like the Wellington bombers and the Mosquito bombers to fly up Loch Striven from Tunbury, I believe, and Ayr, and they would fly up and they would basically drop these bombs, and they kind of acted in the same way as the bouncing bomb. They would spin and they would bounce along, and then they would hit the ship was the Courbet, but it was the Tirpitz, if you like, and it was to test these bombs out. So there's about 200 odd of these bouncing bombs, if you like, or the high balls still lying in Loch Striven.
Wow.
They're fantastic to dive on. Just the history is amazing.
Yeah.
It is just incredible. I mean, it's these things that when you tell people, they go, really? Is that there? And honestly, being able to go and see these things, you go down, and these are just, they look like just big granite balls, basically. But
Wow.
when you start to look a bit closer at them, and you just go, oh, wow. And when you start telling people go, I never knew that was there, and you go, well, yeah, it is. This is the kind of thing that people just don't realise.
But that's another good thing about diving. You're now learning that history, aren't you?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have ever known that.
I love history. Personally, this is like, it was either going to be chemistry or history that I went to. Not much difference there. The UCAS application was great fun trying to do that. The history of like the Scottish lochs as well. I mean, not just the nature, but the history of them is just phenomenal. I've actually been really lucky, and I say lucky because it is luck, that I've been able to work with the BBC in Scotland as well as part of their online platform. It's called BBC The Social. So it's a whole load of different things, and they do some comedy sketches and stuff like that, and they do things about outdoor living and things. So I've actually been able to work with them and kind of write, record, produce, and present.
It's amazing where that's led you.
It's just, this is where everything's kind of led from, just my open water to taking a GoPro, like the first ever GoPro underwater, to being able to suddenly I'm kind of like recording these daft videos, talking about the history and stuff, and people are watching them all around the world and going, oh, is that Scotland? Is that really? And I keep coming back to it, and I just say, look, I'm not an expert, I'm not a historian, I'm not a marine biologist, I'm definitely not a water cameraman, do you know what I mean? I am just somebody that's taken a GoPro and went, look what's here, this is what we've got, so that's the kind of west coast around, if you like, the kind of central belt in Glasgow. But the further up you go, go drive a bit further up to like Ballahullish and through Glencoe, thousands of people drive through Glencoe every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there. I've been up there around Fort William and that. It's really lovely. In fact, Spring Watch at the minute, they're doing a thing on the island of Mull.
Yeah.
And that's quite interesting as well at the moment.
But the diving, nobody looks at what's under the water. Nobody really has a look at what's under the water. Scotland is known for I always put this in as well, your rugged landscapes, your epic mountains and stuff. But nobody looks at what's under the lochs. There is so much life. So you go through Ballahullish, you go through Glencoe and you come to Ballahullish, and you've got Loch Leven that runs through Ballahullish, and the diving in Loch Leven is incredible.
Wow.
You've got 2 or 3 dive sites in Loch Leven that are just phenomenal. You've got wall dives, and it's like dogfish everywhere. There's rays, and you just think, I wish somebody like kind of Monty Halls or Spring Watch or the One Show, somebody would come up and go, let's put a camera in there and let's go and see under the water, because we're never going to be the capital.
What's the visibility like up there?
Well, this is really the problem, and probably why people don't do it quite so much, because it's so variable. Right. So in your Loch Long and Loch Fyne, a good day might be 5 meters, right? And very often it could be less than 3. Or you could go like last Saturday, where the weather was absolutely horrendous, and we thought, if we're just going to go, we'll see everything. We went underwater and it was 20 meters plus.
No way.
Wow.
It's so variable. I think that's probably why there's not more has been done about diving in Scotland, because you can't predict.
Why do you think that was? Is it something to do with the currents?
I have no clue. Genuinely, I have no clue, because the weather had been awful, and we genuinely thought, we'll go and we'll go and see what there is. It gets us out for the morning, and it'll be fine. And then we got under, and it just opened up, and you just thought, wow. Oh my God.
And you can dive them all year round.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can. I mean, visibility is generally better in the winter.
Right.
I again, not 100% sure why. I'm sure the people will be able to explain it, but generally it's slightly better in the winter.
Yeah. What about depth? So for kind of just new divers that have got their open water, is it kind of quite accessible for?
So, certainly the Loch Long and Loch Fyne, there's something for everybody. So the main dive sites on Loch Long and Loch Fyne, you can do the reefs. Generally the reefs are anywhere between kind of 10 meters and 30 meters. So there's something for everyone. Some of the other dive sites are a little bit deeper, so you've got that for the guys that the folk that like to go a little bit deeper, maybe a wee bit of deco diving, a wee bit of tech diving. There really is, on these 2 lochs, Loch Long and Loch Fyne, you talk about people going up to Scapa Flow for a weekend, a week diving and stuff like that. You probably could come up to Loch Long and Loch Fyne, and you could do a week's diving, or certainly a long weekend diving in Loch Long and Loch Fyne, and going from dive site to dive site. And you do something slightly different at each one. And there's something for all levels of divers as well. That there really genuinely is. And if you want to go a wee bit further to Oban, there's a pardon me, Dive Oban in Argyll. Also the same guy as Basking Shark Scotland. Jane, he runs charters for divers up there. And you've got the Breeder wreck, which is a phenomenal wreck. It is absolutely brilliant. It's an old cargo ship, sank during the Second World War. It sits in the seabed as if it had just went straight down. So it looks like a wreck. You know, sometimes when you see these wrecks, they're all twisted bits of metal.
Yeah.
You kind of squint and you're going, oh, I kind of see an anchor there or that something. This, you can see just about everything.
Oh, wow.
And it sits at 9 meters to depth.
Wow.
Really?
You know, and it goes down to, you're talking, you know, seabeds maybe 30, 32 meters.
Yeah.
But the deck level runs from about 9 meters to about 18 meters, and you can swim around it in one dive. It's just phenomenal.
What was the wreck called? The Breeder?
SS Breeder. And funnily enough, I've done a video on that one as well.
Well, we'll have to look those up.
Just to plug that one. But yeah, again.
And these are all on the BBC.
Most of them are. So there is a profile. I have my own profile.
That's
thing.
amazing. That's
But they are. If you really want to send yourself to sleep at night and you're needing something to nod off to, you can sit and watch them and bore yourself with them. But yeah, they're on there, and you know, there's so much different stuff. There's a cracking drift dive as well at Oban too, called the Falls of Laura. And it is not for the faint-hearted, but it is incredible. It's basically where it's at the mouth of a loch where the water comes in and comes out, and it's slack water. You can swim through this channel.
Yeah,
I think is it the Menai Straits in Wales? Is that a dive?
That's pretty tidal, isn't it?
Right. Well, it's the same idea as that. You can only do it at certain times of the year and certain tides. But wow, what a dive! Honestly, you go through it, and it's like you're going through canyons. And it is just incredible. And then when the tide does turn, you can feel it. You know, so we did it. We've done it a couple of times now. The first time I was terrified. But, we came out of the canyon and we'd been swimming out of it, and then suddenly we just like hit a brick wall. It was like hitting a brick wall, and the tide had just turned. And we both looked at each other. Myself and my dive buddy went, "Okay, we're going back the way then." And it just took you straight back out. It was just, you know. There is so much different diving in Scotland that people just aren't aware of it. And, you know.
That sounds fantastic.
Honestly, you could come up here and you could do a week's holiday diving and you probably wouldn't hit all the great. And that's only the ones, if you like, south of Fort William.
Yeah.
We've got like the Isle of Mull. There's Loch Allen or Loch Aline. I'm never quite sure how to say that.
So for people who haven't been, I suppose the best advice is really to contact the local club. And then get in with a local club and you know, go with somebody who knows the area really.
I mean, most of the clubs that we've come across, whether it be Scotsack or Bezac or even the Paddy guys, I mean, everyone is really, really great. I mean, you talk to somebody and say, right, oh, I really want to go and dive the caves today, which is a dive site. Never dived it before in Loch Long. And if you go and message one of the clubs, they'll be like, yeah, we've done that before. This is what local knowledge is absolutely key.
Yeah.
So the other place, I don't know if you guys use it much down south, but it's Finstrokes, which is
heard of it. Yeah.
If you haven't used it, that is one of the most incredible resources for diving, honestly. And it's got it's like basically it's a map of the UK, because I'm sure it's I was got England in it as well. And you just zoom into it, it's Google Maps, and there's like wee pin drops of where the dive site is. Yeah. And it tells you where to park, what the conditions are like underwater, what the depth are like. And it's written by divers. I mean, you know, you've got to take everything with a wee bit of a pinch of salt. You know, sometimes they say it's like, you know, 10 metres and actually you're down at 15 and stuff like that. But in general, it's such an incredible resource that if you're looking for a dive site, so if you're coming up to Scotland for a long weekend and you think, right, I'm going to base myself at Loch Lomond, right, where can I dive? And all you need to do is you just go, right, there's Loch Lomond, and you can look at fin strokes and you can see the different dive sites, and it tells you what level of diver would be good for, what to expect, conditions and stuff like that. It's such a great resource. We use it all the time. Even dive sites we've done before, I sometimes go back on before we get there and go, right, okay, oh yeah, remember that then.
Yeah, we'll have to look that one up because it's
honestly. I think there's a lot of dive sites as well for England. Obviously, I've not really dived much in England, but I'm pretty certain there is for that as well. But yeah, and everyone's so good. I mean, the diving community in Scotland is genuinely pretty good. You get your politics, like everywhere, But generally, if you ask a question, and people will be quite happy for you to, come along with us. We're going to.
You seem pretty confident in in your diving and things that you do. But what sort of tests you? What gets you out of your comfort zone?
Honestly,
when you're diving.
Deco time. So when I started diving really started diving, people dream of going to like the Great Barrier Reef, and that was obviously who we were planning on going. But as soon as I really started diving, I always knew I wanted to go to Scapa Flow. I'm a big total history geek. I love the First and Second World War. Scapa Flow is where I wanted to go. I need to go and dive these wrecks. So I eventually did my master diver, which gets me my 40 meters, which means I could go. But I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, see that when you start to see the deco time racking up a little bit on your computer, those first few minutes where you start to go, okay, yeah, right. There's a wee bit of you get a wee feeling that like, okay, I can't just go straight up now. And for the first couple of minutes when you start doing your decompression stop, that first couple of minutes where it's like, I've got to stay here for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So when we were diving in the wrecks at Scapa, it was technical diving, you're in decompression. There was times when we were doing up to like 20 minutes decompression time, hanging on the line. The first few minutes of in your head, you're thinking, I've got to wait here for 20 minutes. If something goes wrong and I go up early, I'm going to the pot. That sometimes really, the first few minutes.
It's quite sobering though. Now you've done it, you know the implications, don't you? It can't be taken.
What sort of depth are you going at for that?
So, for me personally, I tend to stick to around, for my normal dives, everyday dives, I'm sticking to around 25, 30 meters tops, because that's where the life is. I like to take pictures of, the crabs, the starfish, so that's where the life is.
Yeah.
If I want to go to somewhere like the wrecks, I'll only really go deep if there's a wreck to go to. If there's something if I know that there's something down there, I'm not going down there for the sake of it.
Yeah.
I'll go to 40 meters, and I'll happily go to 40 meters. I've got no problem going. It's just when you start to see the deco, that first couple of minutes that you think, and then I calm myself down and I'm like, right, everything's fine, and you're used to it. So I did a good few days at Scapa, and I was in deco for every dive, but that first couple of minutes of the decompression stop, each time, that wee bit where you're like, oh, okay, need to wait. But that and going into wrecks, I know where my limits are.
Yeah,
I know that my limit's 40 meters, and that's what I'll go to. I know that, I might like the look of that wheel inside that wreck there. I quite fancy a photo of that, but I'm not going in there. Do you know what? I know I was diving with a guy at Scapa, a guy Didier, who is just a phenomenal diver and a phenomenal guy. And he has got qualifications as long as your arm. And he was fantastic. He was just like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't really want to hold you back. I know Didier like to go inside the wrecks and stuff. And he's like, no, I don't mind. That's fine. And diving with somebody with that experience was great. Towards the end of the week, what we'd kind of said was, he had said, look, I can take you in if you want, and I'll line it out and we can do it all by the book. And I said, look, I really don't fancy it. And he went, that's absolutely fine. So that's fine. So we did a couple of the wrecks, and he says, look, do you mind this wreck? I really would like to have a look inside one of the turrets. Do you mind if I go in? And I'm like, that's absolutely fine. You tell me where you're going to go in and where you're going to come out, and I will just swim, if you like. I'll swim next to it, and I'll get you at the other side, or I'll just wait for you.
And that's really good, because you know your limits and you're not dictated to by anybody but yourself.
I think that's one of the things there is. I found a couple of different people. There's a kind of macho thing. Look at how deep I can go, and I've done this, and I've went for this long and stuff like that. And you do want to get your 100th dive, and you do want to get your number of dives up, but there comes a point where you go, right, that's plenty. I know my limits. I know, I've got friends that run dive shops and are instructors, and like, oh, come and do your trimix, and come and do your Deco 50 course, and I'm like, I don't want to do a Deco 50 course. And we've got the U-boats as well on the East Coast. There's a couple of amazing U-boats on the East Coast that, in fact, there's actually one at Arran. So we live not far from the island of Arran, and there's a U-boat, I think, just on the south tip of it, the southeast tip, and I think it sits in about 80 meters of water, something like that. And I'm like, oh, if you come and do these courses, and and I'm like, I would love to see a U-boat. I mean, there is nothing I would absolutely love to, but I don't really want to go to 50 meters, 60 meters, 70 meters. I've seen my wrecks at Scapa. I've that's always been my goal.
Yeah.
At the moment, I've hit my limit. I want to focus on making my nice photos, kind of, and just focus on that.
Well, that's a good way for you to, be, and it's a sensible option. So really, really good. Yeah.
That's not to say anyone else shouldn't do it. Absolutely, if you want to do it, absolutely go for it. I mean,
but stick to your limits, and you're never dictated to by someone else. You've got to do it for yourself, haven't you? When you're comfy to do it.
I think it's also who you've got around you, in terms of your dive buddies and your friends and stuff like that. The group that I said it earlier, the friends that we have made out of diving has just been phenomenal. I mean, we've got such a great group of friends now. When they know, they can turn around and say to me, right, Ross, I don't want to do the dive today. I'm not feeling it. Or look, I only want to stick to 15 meters. And I can say to them, listen, folks, I don't really want to go the other day. I don't feel that dive. I don't. It's finding the right people to dive with as well. You want people to push you. Don't get me wrong. You do want people at times to go, oh, come on, you'll be all right. You'll be absolutely fine. But you also need the folk that to go, look, I'm not feeling this today.
Yes, yeah.
Let's not bother. You want to encourage people to get out and do stuff, but at the same time, you don't want to push them too far if you can avoid it.
So would you say that's a nugget to take away from this podcast, would you say?
I think the nugget is do what's right for you, because I think I was looking at some of the questions that you guys sometimes ask, and that was the one that kept coming back to.
Yeah.
Find what works for you, whether that's photography and taking it in auto, or whether it's just using video lights instead of strobes. Personally, I dive on independent 12s, so I've had no end of abuse and ribbons from people saying, oh, you should have a manifold in your 12s, don't dive independents. And I'm like, no, I quite like my independent 12s, that works for me. I can see positives in manifolds, but independents work fine.
And it's what you're comfortable with as well. That's
what I'm comfortable with, and I totally get it. And as I say, I've got
so when you say independents, to be clear, they're not side mounted, they're on your back.
They're essentially two side mounts on my back.
Oh, okay.
So all it is I describe it to folk, it's basically just two 12s.
Yeah. One
12 with a big pony 12.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a big 12, a 12-litre cylinder with a pony cylinder, which just happens to also be a 12.
Yeah.
So it means that I've got to manage my gas. So I've got to balance the two out halfway through a dive. So I know that if I breathe down 50 bar in one, I'll then switch.
You dive on your own?
No, I don't. That's one
You're
thing.
Not self-reliant?
No, I don't. That's the one course that I'm considering. I'm definitely thinking about doing a self-reliant course just to do a wee bit more, to improve my own knowledge for photography and stuff like that. But no.
But why didn't you want to go down the manifold route?
Because at the time, no one else in the club was diving manifold. I didn't have any real friends that could give me the kind of how to do it and how to go down it. Somebody had says, try this. If you're not really sure about manifold, why don't you try two independents? A couple of the guys in the club had dived it before. It seems to be a club thing where people dive independent.
So when you, you've got independent gauges, SPI, you've got independent regulators.
Yes.
On them. Alternates on both?
No, just one in each. So one in each. So it's not maybe, so probably if there's a problem with one of the tanks, the dive's over. I
So
always
if your buddy needed air, they would go to your
They would go
surplus
to-
tank.
Yes, they would go to the spare one. Essentially, they would go to the pony tank. Yeah,
Right.
it's not necessarily the done thing, but it certainly works for me. And it's been listening to other people and talking to other people and finding out what works for them. So a lot of the guys,
Yeah.
there's a few people that dive independents up here in Scotland. It's definitely not the done thing. And hopefully, when I do eventually do the solo diver course, it might be something that I look into.
Yeah.
Eventually.
So, and when you're using your air and you're
Yep.
getting down, at what stage do you swap over onto the other one?
I usually go for 50 bar at a time. So if I
Yeah.
start at 200 bar in each tank, I'll swap over at 150 bar in one, and then I'll breathe the other one down to 150, swap back.
To keep them balanced.
Just to keep them balanced. And
Yeah.
as I say, it kind of works for me. It basically means that I've generally got more, if you like, in the first dive for definite.
Yes.
Do you always dive with 2 independents?
Yep, pretty much always. I moved from my single setup with a pony to eventually just going, well, do you know what? I'm going to go to 2 independents and just do it that way.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's worked so far for me. I've never come across anything that any issues that I've had with it. As I say, it's not the done thing. It's definitely not the done thing, and I don't. You don't recommend it to to folk to do. You find if you get the chance to go try manifold, go and do that, and I will. Eventually, I will. But at the moment, it kind of works for me.
Yeah.
And that's with a standard wing setup.
Yeah. So actually, it's I use the AP, dive and the buddy one. Their wing, the tech wing, wing, which is just Buddy has got such a great name in UK diving over the years, bomb-proof. So I kind of looked at various different ways and different ones, and eventually the Buddy one came up, and I thought, well, I can swap between the double tanks, the double kind of cam band, and I can get between a single cam band if I ever really wanted to. So you can actually take it out and swap it over. So I don't need to have like 2 back plates or two brackets or anything like that. It's just one wing, and if I need to, I can take out the double cam bands and put on my single one if I really want to. And it's a wing. It's still a wing and a back plate essentially.
Yeah.
And
I guess it doesn't really matter as long as you're happy with it. And when you do, I presume when you're getting geared up, do you still do a buddy check? And your dive buddy knows what to do and things
every time. So I've got my kind of regular dive buddies, and even before we go in, we always do a quick check. Right, have you got this? And generally it's because you've forgotten something. So you step in the water and you go, right, oh, I forgot my weights. Okay, right, back to the, it's we always do it. We would never go into the water without doing a buddy check and just explaining. And if you're diving with somebody for the first time, or one of the other guys in the club who you don't regularly dive with, maybe you have to try and explain it, everything.
So weight-wise, what would you use with those 2 tanks?
Around between kind of 10 to 12 kilo. The problem with the one downside to the Buddy BCD is it's got so much material on it. It's got so much, so it's so buoyant as well. So I wouldn't say I've dropped a huge amount. I could probably do with dropping a little bit of weight. I could probably get away with dropping a little bit of weight off my lead and off my own personal physique as well. I could do.
You got back plate in there?
No, so it's a plastic back plate. So that's why you also need a little bit more. You don't have the steel back plate that you do in a kind of standard wing and back plate setup. It's a BCD, but a wing, if you like, wing inflation as opposed to the actual back plate and wing. It's one unit, if you like.
Okay, that's interesting.
Honestly, they are so comfy. You look at them and you think, do I want, the X Deep stuff looks incredible. The Scuba Pro X Tech, is it X Tech, whatever it is, the Scuba Pro stuff. All of these look great. They really, really do. The Apex stuff looks brilliant. Yeah. But I just found that the Buddy one was just so comfortable. Again, it's probably not the standard choice for a twin set, rig. People generally like the steel back plate and be able to, to unclip it and take the tanks apart and stuff like that. But, the always thing I say is find what works for you.
Yeah.
Interesting. There's so many different, opinions in diving and stuff like that, and every one of them has their own merit, and it's just finding what works for you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know?
So you just saying about your buddies, if you could take 3 people diving, who would you take? Obviously, they don't have to be divers, but yeah.
Well, one of them definitely isn't a diver, and probably won't be for about maybe 14 years. But I think I would definitely have to take my daughter. I would love to, eventually teach Hannah to dive. Well, not me personally. I'd probably be a nervous wreck if I was teaching her how to dive. But I would love to take my daughter eventually, in years to come. So hopefully she will enjoy it as much as we do. Hopefully. I was thinking about it. I mean, there's a kind of, this is cheating a little bit, but the guys that I dive with on a regular basis, I wouldn't change those guys for anything. There's such a great group, and they have got the patience of saints. My dive buddies really do have the patience of saints. They're quite happy to hang about while, as I keep saying, take that 17th photo of the same crab, but for a slightly different angle. They just hang about and they just go, oh, there's Ross taking a photo again. I genuinely wouldn't change them for anything. If you were to push me, I would go for somebody like Becky Short, Becky
Kagan Shot, yeah.
Yep. Her photography is just incredible. I mean, the Great Lakes, the wreck photography is just out of this world. I would love to go diving with what I would class as a real photographer, and learn from a real photographer and see.
Yeah.
The guy, I don't know if he's come. Another guy, this is really cheating because this is 4, but there's a guy, Alex Dawson, who dives in Sweden, and his photography is just out of this world. I mean, don't get me wrong, I guess the visibility is slightly better as well in Scotland. It can be really, obviously, at 5 meters, you're not going to get much of a wreck, but Alex Dawson and Becky Shot is just incredible. I'd love to do it with real photographers and see a professional at work and see somebody that's really.
Yeah, no,
really
I totally agree.
Doing,
Yeah, we've had Becky on the podcast.
I've listened to that one a wee while back, and she speaks so well, and listening to the passion that she's got for it.
Yeah, she's very awesome.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant. It really is. I love listening to other people and, getting hearing about their journeys and their passions for it as well. It's just, it's quite inspirational, actually.
It is, yeah.
So it is. It really is.
Yeah, no, people of the world, they've got so many different experiences. But if you had like a billboard that you could put out there to the whole world, either above water or underwater, what sort of message would you put on it? Obviously, it could be photography or a message, written message or a video.
I would cheat. So I would go for, again, I was thinking about this as well, I would go for like a slideshow. And what I would do is I would get the Scottish photographers, the guys that really know what they're doing. So you've got guys like James there. I've written them down here because these guys are genuinely incredible photographers.
This man's prepared. I like this.
No, but because I was looking at this and I'm thinking, I don't want to miss anybody out because there are so many great photographers in Scotland that are doing so many great stuff. So I'm going to miss folk out, but like I would have like a slideshow. And there's guys like James Lynett, Alistair Adele, Mark Kirkland, Peter Petrie, and Mike Clark. These guys are just incredible. And it would be like a slideshow of their Scottish photography.
Yeah.
And I would probably put underneath it, this is Scotland almost. And just say, look, this is Scotland as well. It's not just about our hills and our castles and stuff like that. Everyone knows about the hills. Everyone knows about the castles. Everyone knows about our natural beauty landscapes, but this is Scotland as well. This is underwater Scotland. It would just be, I think, these guys are phenomenal. Flag?
Yeah, would you have the flag up?
Oh, the saltire? Oh, absolutely. Up there, absolutely. No, it would just be. It's just one of these things that I am so genuinely passionate about. Like raising the profile of Scottish diving. And UK diving as a whole. I think cold water diving is genuinely underrated. I think it is so underrated, and I think I heard you guys talking about it with Ranva and stuff like that. If there's one positive, and certainly in the dive industry to come out of COVID and that horrible couple of years, is people became more aware of what's on our doorstep. whether that be like local walks and stuff. But I think for divers, it's local dive sites as well.
Yeah, definitely,
You know,
definitely.
People would maybe travel a couple of hours, you know, in a plane, which is not wrong, by the way. I'd love to jump in a plane now and go to Egypt or something like that. But you know, drive a couple of hours and go to the coast. You're never, what is it they say in the UK? You're never more than a few hours drive for the sea.
You are blessed up there because you've got some great dives up there, great landscapes as well. And the fact that you can dive all year round, you know, we've got such a short window on our East Coast. In fact, most of our East Coast can't dive anytime. So, you know, you're very fortunate and, you know, beautiful part of the world.
I think we forget that. I genuinely think us divers in Scotland forget that. I think that we sometimes, certainly some of the older guys in the club, you know, you say, oh, I'm going up to Loch Long this weekend, do you fancy coming? And you get the kind of, up there again, I've done that before. And you go, but it's incredible, you know. Yeah. You never know you genuinely never know what you're going to find. You could go to the same dive site 2 days in a row and get something completely different.
And that's the beauty of, this diving.
That could be the title of this episode. Come to Scotland and you'll find something completely different.
I mean, the best example I always come back to is the bobtail the bobtail squid at Loch Fyne. The dive sites at Cats, I've dived at 30, 40 times, something like that. And honestly, I had never seen a bobtail squid until my dive buddies like prodding me, going, look over there. And honest to God, we were down about 35 metres this time, and eventually she had to come and like shake me and go, right, come on, that's enough, right? You've had enough taking photos of that. I had never seen anything like that there. I'd never seen a bobtail squid, and I was absolutely mesmerised. And I came out the dive and I was like, oh my God, I've dived here 25, 30 times and it still, you know, it still excites me. I was there on Saturday and I saw the most massive lobster, and you know, you're like, oh my God. You're trying to get the camera in and you're trying to get the photo and you're going, look, and you're going, you know, you never know what you're going to find. No. You could go in and you could see maybe your hand. Some days you'll maybe just see your hand, and then some days you'll see like 3 or 4 conger eels, or you'll see a bobtail squid, or you'll see a lobster. It's just, and that's what keeps you going back for more. That's what you remember when it's pissing with rain. And it's 8:30 on a Sunday morning in the middle of December, and you're going, what am I doing here? Why am I here? What have I done? And you go in the water and you go, oh my God, that's so worth it. It is. It's just incredible.
It's been really good. So if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
Well, if they want to be put to sleep at night, they can have a wee look in the BBC The Social and just type in BBC The Social Ross McLaren into Google, and it kind of takes you up to my, sounds very professional, doesn't it? My BBC profile.
Very good.
It's good.
No, it's 11 short videos that really will send you to sleep, but it gives you an idea. And you'll see why when I say I'm no expert in underwater photography. You'll see the shaky camera and everything. And Instagram is pretty much my main place where I like to post my semi-respectable photos that come out. So it's underwater.ross. And after quite a while of people saying to me, you really should set up a Facebook page and a Twitter for it as well. I have set up a Facebook and a Twitter. It's just Underwater Ross as well.
Yeah, great.
But it's the same crap photos that I put on Instagram as that will go on there as well. So you only need to look at one of the two if you're really that way inclined, if you really fancy it. But yeah, it's honestly, it's really great. You know, what you guys are doing as well, you know, talking to the inspirational divers like, you know, like Becky and Ranva and Christina Zanato, you know, talking to these guys is phenomenal for us to listen. But when like yourself, you get an email saying, would you like to come on and talk, and you think, what am I going to talk about? I mean,
diving.
But there you go.
Diving.
I take crap photos of Scottish lochs. What do you really want to talk to me about? You know.
Yeah, so, but look at everything you've said. It's just been amazing. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's great that you guys are getting involved with, like, if you like, normal divers as well. You know, because there's so many stories. Every diver's got a story.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it's great. So.
Yeah. Well, it's been super having you on, and your enthusiasm is just like.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Thank you.
infectious. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It really means a lot. It genuinely does mean a lot. And listen, if you guys are ever up this way, please.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah, we'll give you a shout.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
do you do childcare at all as well? Childcare, free childcare? No. But honestly, if anyone
Yeah,
does,
nice try.
Aye.
Mine are now grown up. I don't have to worry too much about that.
Right, excellent. You've got experience then. Excellent. Right, you're sold. That's great.
There you go.
If anyone does ever want to get in touch or about Scottish diving and stuff like that, I am not an expert, but feel free. Anyone can send me a message, and if I don't know the answer, I'll try and find somebody that I can point you in the right direction of.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
Just know the answer. Do you know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
no, that's great. And I think people listening will be wanting to hot foot it up to Scotland and try these sea lochs, because it's just sounds great.
They'll get up here and they'll put their head under the water and they'll see nothing and they'll go, "Oh, I listened to that Scottish guy in that podcast. God's sake."
No, not at all. It's no. We've spoken to Elaine Whiteford, another photographer.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So and she was just
actually come across Elaine, to be honest with you. I've heard the podcast on it, but I've not actually come across Elaine.
Yeah, because she's
similar places.
Yeah, so maybe you'll bump into her one day,
You bump into so many people in the dive sites, and it's great fun. It really is.
Yeah. No, it's been fab having you on, and just thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Alrighty, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that. So what say thank you very much to Ross for coming on and giving us his time to chat to us about his diving.
Yeah, he's certainly a friend of the podcast, and he's recommended some future guests as well, which is lovely.
Yeah, it is, and certainly fills you with enthusiasm to go to Scotland and go and dive up there.
Yeah, he's very lucky.
Some beautiful places to dive up there.
I thought it was Jimmy the Fish.
So Gemma's actually just trying to catch the eye of strange men as we sit here. Nice one, Gemma.
That's great, isn't it? I'm glad I didn't wave.
So I just leave and let you chat this guy up?
I'll go red now. I'm so glad I didn't put my hand up.
Oh dear.
Right, anyway, moving on.
And no editing this stays in.
Yes, it's fine.
So there we go. All happens here
when we're on location.
On location. Gemma tries to eye up strange men.
Anybody on a bike.
Yeah. They'll do. They're breathing.
Oh, shut up.
Anyway, back to diving. We've got a
Come
podcast
on.
here.
Yes. Yeah, I've got a red face now.
Anyway, hope you enjoyed that, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to look us up on Instagram, and don't forget to leave us a review. We ain't had a review for ages. Come on,
what's going
on with our listeners? You all keep downloading us. Thank you very much, but come on, leave us a review.
Yeah,
that's all. Doesn't cost anything apart from a few seconds. And leave us a 5-star review. It just helps us get found.
Yeah, and a lot of you we know
we'll
listen.
Love you forevermore.
Yeah, a lot of people do listen on Apple, so they can leave a review.
So come on. Apart from that, we've got to say thank you very much for downloading. Thanks for listening as always, and you make these things all worth it.
Yeah,
letting us know that you're there.
And have a super week ahead. And if you're diving, let us know where you're going.
Yes.
Send us a message.
Well, hopefully get some diving in maybe next week.
Yeah, next weekend we'll see what's happening on the local coast.
Yeah, absolutely, can't wait. Look forward to that. So anyway, we'll speak to you soon, and be safe with whatever you're doing, and we'll speak to you on the next one.
Yep, thanks for downloading.
That was the Big Scuba
Podcast.
Now that does wrap up today's episode of the Big Scuba Podcast, but if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button depending on what platform you are listening on. That way you will never miss an episode from us. But if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and did enjoy what you heard today, we would really appreciate it if you head to the show page to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help us. If you do, please take a screenshot of that review and send it to us on Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out to say a big thank you. If you have any questions for us or anything that has been mentioned in today's episode, be sure to reach out to us
on any of our social media platforms or send us an email. The links are in the show notes. We will get back to you no matter what. If you have made it to this point in the episode, we both want to say a big thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.